So I'm just going over it one more time, adding my main base skin color here and there where I see it needs it before I get into mixing up a value that's lighter. And when I mix up my lighter values, I'll mix up a few variations again because there's subtle color differences as well. And it's good to have a few little variations to dip into. There will still be areas in here that need to be lightened, but it will be a lot easier for me to judge that once I get my lighter colors on here for my highlights. Just trying to make sure I've got the correct shape and some softness. And I've covered up the canvas so I don't have transparent areas fooling my eyes. It's challenging because the paint dries darker, so when you put something on, it might look a little too light, but it'll dry darker, or it might look just the right color and then it dries too dark. And your eye will adjust that if you work with acrylics, and that's just one of the things that goes with working them. There are some paint companies that claim that there's less darkening as they dry. I haven't really experimented too much with that, mostly because I've been doing this for so many years that I'm kind of used to that darkening as they dry. So I will stop now and mix up my lighter colors in a few subtle different shades and come back and do the highlights. So I'm working my way through some of the highlights here. I've mixed up a couple of colors. Some of them are a bit pinker and some of them are with just a hint of the blue-green in them. And again, just kind of dragging the paint. Letting the canvas texture create some of the scumbling. I'll do at least a couple layers of these highlights. In some cases, one layer of the same color going over the first layer, and in other cases mixing up a slightly lighter color. There were times in the past where I've done as much as a dozen layers to create variations, but as I've gotten better at getting the base color correct, now it's usually not more than about 6 or 7 layers. And you do need the layers to create the subtlety and the variation. And the illusion of blending. And as I go, I'll be able to see whether I've got the correct value in the other areas that I've already painted. He's got a little dark spot on his nose, but I'm going to leave that off. I'm guessing that's just because he's so brand new. So every medium has its benefits. Oils are much easier to blend. So in some ways, painting a portrait in oils is a lot easier than in acrylic because there are always soft blended edges. But I've done acrylic for many years and I do like doing things like this. And you can get finer painting in much cases with acrylics than oils, more detail. And this process could be done in oils too, and you could blend as you go, letting the layers dry in between. But it would take a long time in drying time. And I just let some of the other color show wherever I feel it doesn't need to go as light. And I can control how much paint I apply by adding just touches of water as I go. I'm just dipping back and forth between the two colors I've mixed up, the one that's a little pinker and the one that's a little greener. So it's a matter of adding light values where you see them and leaving the values of you've already painted if they are correct. And with lighting and a little face this young, it's very, very subtle. So then I will step back for another look, see if I have this beginning of the highlights in the correct place. And if I feel like I do, I will mix up another color that's a little bit lighter by adding just a bit of white, and I might even add a little bit of yellow if it needs to be warmer, though the highlights on this little guy are quite cool, so I may not need to. Usually when you lighten an orange red like this, you have to add yellow to keep it warm enough, but I don't know if I will in this case. Time for a step back and look.